Hi, I'm Brianna Kerrigan, and we are here with the last video for Techniques of Training Class 4, and we're going to get right to it. The first exercise we're going to do is bending the rib cage. Now, my specialty I chose is barrel racing, and why this is important is because when you're going around the barrel, you need your horse to be bent around the barrel just like you would be a perfect circle around it, and if their rib cage isn't bent, they're not going to be making that nice smooth circle. So what you can do to teach them to do these circles, I'm going to get her trotting, and all you simply do, put your inside leg on that rib cage just a little bit to ask her to bend around it. Now if you put too much, what'll happen is she'll move off like this. She'll kind of move out of the circle, but I want her to kind of stay in a little bit. I want some smaller circles right now. And then with my hands, I'll just use my inside to tip her nose into the middle of my circle if I need to. I'm not going to ask her too much. And if I need to, I can squeeze with my legs a little bit and ask her to soften her face and to lift her back. And that outside leg, all you're doing with that is if you need to, you can put a little bit of weight on it. If they like to drop into that circle, just put a little weight into that outside stirrup, and then it'll bring them outside to move them out of that circle a little. Alright, so now we're going to go the other way because we don't run the barrels all to the same direction, so we need to make sure that both directions are nice and soft. And this is a great warm-up exercise. If you're out in the warm-up pen and you're trying to get your horse nice, soft, and supple and ready to run barrels, ask them to bend their rib cage. Get them listening before you try to just run them into the arena and hope and pray that you have a good run. So you're just going to look over your shoulder a little bit. Keep that leg on them. Just kind of lift your inside rein if you need to. If some of those horses like to drop their shoulder. I'm going to make these circles even a little bit smaller, but I'm going to ask her to keep bending that rib cage. Alright, so now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to do a similar exercise, but this time I'm going to change it and I'm going to ask her to tip her nose to the outside. So this is called counter bending. This is good for those horses that like to kind of drop their shoulder, lean into those barrels. This helps to teach them to pick their shoulder up, but it's not something, it's a tool. You don't want your horses to learn to run into the barrel with their nose tipped to the outside. They need to be nice and rounded inside. So this is a tool to help teach them to keep their shoulders up. So I'm going to ask her to turn around. So I'm going to get her trotting in a circle again. And all I'm going to do is just use my outside hand. I'm going to tip her nose to the outside. Bring my outside leg forward to stop her from turning out. Just keep my hands nice and light. If you notice, my shoulders are kind of turned out like her head is. So I'm kind of turning my body to help her to turn hers. Then I'll bring her head back straight like we would do a normal circle. And I like to do this because I like her to keep her head soft while transitioning. I'll ask her to stop. Tell her good job, because we need to remember to tell them when they're doing the right thing, or they're not going to know what we wanted them to do until they ended the lesson. Then they're going to say, oh, whatever we did at the end was whatever was good enough to get a break. So I'm going to ask her to trot again. And then I'm just going to lift up my outside rein. Bring my leg forward on the outside leg. That way, if she tries to turn out, I can push her shoulder back over. back her up a little bit. So there was our counter bending. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask her to move her hip. So the reason we would teach them to move their hip is because when you're teaching a colt and you ride them up to that first barrel and you want them to have just the right placement so they learn perfect the first time, they might go in there and they're not sure what to do, and so their hip might be all the way over there. But your barrel is right here, so what you're going to do is just bring your leg back, and I'll move so you can see it better, but you're just going to put your pressure back here, and you're going to just ask them to move over. So you're going to say, hey, please move your hip so it's closer to the barrel, so you have better positioning. So you just I keep my hands nice and soft, and I just use them if I need to. There we go. Just getting a little sticky there, not moving. So I use my hands to steady her. The goal is front feet stay pretty still, and then the back feet just move around. So we're just going to pivot on our front feet. So I'm going to use my hands to keep her still, bring my leg back, just put that spur on her just so she feels it, and if she stops moving, I'll just kind of roll it gently to ask her to move over, and I'll tell her good job. And then I'll do that again, where I'll just bring my foot back, and then just ask her to move over, and move that hip over. So another exercise you should always teach your horses is collection. So now when we ask a horse to collect, what we're doing is we're asking them to lift their back, their rib cage, and break at the poles, so they'll soften their face and they'll lower their head. Like some horses, when you see them and they're not collected, their nose will be up in the sky. And what we're asking is not that their head is low to the ground, but that their nose is kind of straight down to the ground. And then when they do all of these, what they'll end up doing is they'll bringing their hindquarters further underneath themselves to gather up more power to push themselves forward. So when you see a barrel horse that really knows how to engage their hindquarters, they're going to be a lot faster than, say, a horse that's not collected and running the same speed, but they may not be covering as much ground as the horse that's collected, if that makes sense. So I'll kind of talk to you about how I spot collection. I'll get her trotting in a circle, that way you can kind of see it. And I'm going to squeeze with my legs to ask her to kind of break and pull a little bit. You see how she's not got her head low to the ground, but she softens that face and she kind of brings her nose a little bit lower. And then you'll see that she lifts her back, and her back feet actually come further forward. So it's almost like they're stepping right into the hoof prints of the front feet. So now I'll pick it up to a lope. Some people see it a little bit easier at a lope. So let me get loping. The leg that's inside her circle, that leg is reaching further forward, almost stepping into the hoof print of the front inside leg. While she's doing that, she's lifting her back, she's keeping her head nice and broke, and she's staying collected. She's even smoother while she's collected. You're going to get those better stops too, because with those feet underneath themselves like that, it's going to be easier for them to stop, because it's kind of like their feet are going to help pedal them down to the stop. Whereas if their feet are way back behind them and they're not collected, you're going to stop them and their front feet are going to have to drag forward and try to stop themselves. So the next exercise we're going to do is we are going to ask her to move her shoulder. The reason you would ask a barrel horse to learn this exercise is because when you're teaching a colt how to find that proper positioning for going into the barrel, you might have to kind of pick them up and move their shoulder off barrel. And if you're teaching a new, like a really young colt, just the pattern, you might trot up to that barrel and they might have their shoulder too close into the barrel when you set them down. So all you'd have to do, I'm going to ask her to kind of break at the pole a little bit first, is all you have to do is take this leg here. I'm going to move her to the left, so I'm going to take my right leg and I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure to move her shoulder over. So I just took one step that way. Now I'm going to move it back. So now, of course, you wouldn't be asking your horse, your colt, to be moving back and forth. You just ride him up to the barrel, say the barrel's over here, or right down here. And that's way too close to where I want her to be in that. When I'm training her on the pattern, I'm just going to ask her, hey, step off that barrel just a step. And then that'll be just right where I want her to be. And I'll reward her, and then we'll move on. So I've been practicing spins for this because she moves her shoulder well, and I want to work on her spins because I think they're really fun, and we haven't been super good at them in the beginning classes. So what I'm going to do to ask her to spin, I'm going to spin to the left first. I'm going to keep my left leg off of her, that way she has somewhere to move into, and I'm just going to keep my hands nice and soft. I'm not going to pull her around. I'm going to look where I'm going to go, and I'm just going to use my right leg to push her shoulder over. So I'm going to sit, I'm going to look. I'm just going to bring my leg forward. I'm going to cue her to move. And there's her spin that way, and just like people, we're better one side than the other, and so are horses, so we need to work both sides, because just because she can spin to the left doesn't mean she can spin to the right. So we're going to do the right side too. It's just the same. I'm going to keep my right leg off of her, and I'm going to use my left leg to push her shoulder over. So I'm going to ask her to soften her face. I'm going to sit in my saddle, look where I want to go, and bring that leg forward. And the goal with this spin is we're asking her to take this outside leg and step over her inside. She's going to be reaching around as she's stepping, and that's why she's going to pivot off her back leg and then step around. So she did pretty good with that one, and I'm really proud because we've been working on that one a lot. Now the next exercise on our list is we're going to do rollbacks. So I practice some of these in a circle, and I practice them in a straight line. I'm going to try them in a straight line, and then I might even practice a couple in a circle. But what I'm just going to do is I'm going to ask her to lope, and we're going to lope her up. I'm going to sit down, we're going to stop, and I'm going to just turn to where I want to go next. And my hands and my body are going to follow, and she's going to pick up and lope off the next way. So I'm not asking her to really stop in the ground. I'm asking her to kind of pause and turn around and go. So it's going to be, try to keep it one fluid motion. So I'm going to go both directions. I'm going to ask her to turn to the right, and I'll lope her, and then I'll ask her to turn to the left and lope her. And we'll see if we need to do some in a circle after this, but we're going to try some in a straight line first. So I'm just going to move her off the camera a little bit. And then I'm going to cue her up to a lope. I'm going to sit. I'm going to turn her around. And that one, what she wanted to do is she wanted to kind of just run off. So I'm just going to ask her to just turn a little circle. Because I want her to think that when we get to this spot, we're going to stop, we're going to sit down and turn, and we're not just going to trot off. We're going to pivot like that, and then we'll lope off to our next spot. I'm going to stop her, turn and look, and we'll lope off again. Stop, can show you both ways of doing them. She's kind of getting a little excited about these. So I'm going to get her moving. I'm just going to stop by sitting down and bring my leg forward, turn around, and then give her off the slope again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ask her to side pass out of lope. And what we'll do is we'll get her to lope a circle, just get her moving, and then I'm just going to bring my leg back and ask her to move away from my leg and just side pass over. But we're going to attempt that at a lope. Now, the reason you would use this with a barrel horse is you might be running from your first barrel and say that your horse kind of came out wide, and you need to pick them up and move them over. You're not going to just pull their nose out to the side to position them for that next turn. You need to keep them bent for that next barrel, because you're going to plan to turn to the left. So what you'd want to do is just pick them up and just ask them to side pass out a lope. That way they're far enough over, but they haven't broken that nice shape that they'll have for their barrel. So I'll get her loping, and I'm gonna lope down the arena, so you might not be able to hear me too well, but I'll try to kind of talk my way through this. Get her going just one circle, that way she's got some nice forward momentum. And now I'm just gonna bring my leg back and ask her to move over. To you, I'm going to move off the other way. And the entire time what I was trying to achieve with my hands was I was just trying to keep my hands soft and not so much pulling her over, but just trying to keep her neck more straight, her body in a line, and then just ask her to move over by pushing off of her rib cage. Now the exercise we're going to do is called loping for speed control, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to come to this big arena, is that we'd have more room to really try out this exercise. We've been working on it for a while and it's been awesome. This exercise really works well for teaching your horse to rate your seat and teaching them to speed up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lope to a corner. I'm going to make an imaginary rectangle, and I'm going to lope to my corner. And when I get to my corner, I'm just going to sit down into my saddle to teach her to slow down. And then I'm going to ask her to turn, and then I'll pick up and we'll lope off again, and I'll ask for more speed. And what I did with this is I just switched her to a roping rein or a barrel rein, whatever you want to call it. Just one single rein. That way I'm not trying to juggle split reins and making a mess out of my hands and then possibly confusing her with what I'm trying to teach her. So I'll start the exercise. I'm going to ask her to soften and then pick up to a lope. I'm bringing my body forward, but when I want to turn, there, she did some really nice ones. And I was ready to tell her, hey, good job. You know, you don't want to work them too much on this or they'll get a little hot. So now what I'll do, I'll just turn her around and ask her to go off the other way. I might not do too many to the other direction. I just want to show that we can do it both ways. But she's getting pretty excited about this. And then we're going to trot some barrels after this. So I'll ask her to move up and I'll lean forward and I'll sit down and tell her to slow down. And that time I actually slowed her down a lot with my body. I just wanted her to stop. I could tell that she was going to try to kind of sneak into that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back her up a little bit. Ask her to stop and back up without trying to anticipate that turn. And when she does it correctly, like this, I'm just going to tell her good job. And now the last part of our video, I was asked to trot some barrels and then lope some barrels. So I'm just going to go right through it. And I'm just going to start trotting some, and then I'll go into loping some. I might go through the barrels like 2 times. Okay, so we trotted through the barrels twice, and now I'll take her through and I'll just kind of lope her through. I'm not going to push her, but I'm just going to try to get a nice, clean, perfect pattern that we've been training for a while now. So I'm going to lope her in, and my goal with this is that I'm trying to look for just 4 to 5 feet off that barrel is where I'm focusing on. I don't want to look at the barrel, because if I do, I'll ride right to it and I'll knock it over. So I'm going to look just a couple feet off of it, and that's my goal. And when I get to that, I'm going to stay that 4 to 5 feet off around the whole way. And once I get to my exit point on the other side, I'm just going to look to the next point on the other barrel. I'm going to do that on all 3 of them. And I'm going to ride up into that barrel, and then once I get to kind of the first half of it on the back side, that's where I'm going to sit down, and I'm just going to lift my rein and ask her to turn around it. So now I'll go up there and ask her to lope into it, and we'll do 2 times through maybe. both on barrels 2 and 3. She kind of broke down to a trot. So what I did was I asked her to pick back up into that lope and bend her rib cage around that barrel until she did it correctly. Then we moved on to the next one. So now we're going to try that loping again, and hopefully she'll just keep her, I'm going to work better on me doing my part as a rider to keep her rib cage bent and continue that lope the whole way through. Expect perfect every time, and I don't want to just run her into the ground and make her think that the only way she gets out of this job is by just doing it. I want her to love this job as, you know, running barrels. So that was our last final for this class. It has helped me so much with my barrels, running barrels on her. I've been having such a blast learning. So this is Brianna Kerrigan for Techniques of Training 4. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.